How different does this week feel going into this game versus other weeks?
Different. I do this on Wednesdays now, I guess. Other than that, yeah, obviously it's a lot different, but I feel like I've said this a couple times, but I've been preparing like I was going to be the guy at some point, and that was kind of my job. And so, yeah, my reps are different. Obviously, I'm not on the scout team anymore. If anything, Wednesday practices, the plays I'm running, there's supposed to be someone open. It's not always the case on scout team offense. And then just the preparation is a little bit different. Like, you get some of the play calls on Wednesday. Usually, I'm kind of learning those as Joe is calling them. And now it's like, all right, before I go out to practice, I need to call those right so we have a crisp practice and stuff like that. But, yeah, obviously it's different and adjusting to that on the fly, but feel well prepared for that adjustment.
You talk about your routine being a big part of why, as you go through and prep. What's probably the most important thing at this point in the week that you do in your routine to get ready for a weekend?
I think just the last 2 days, you watch a lot of Steelers tape. I feel like I've been in the room when we've played them a lot. Kind of got a good feel, I feel like, for what they're doing on defense at this point in the week. And now it's, okay, what are we doing to attack that or what they do? And so I think that's kind of where you want to be on a Wednesday is, okay, I know what they do. What are we going to do? And then you really start diving into knowing what we're doing on normal downs, third down, red zone as the week progresses.
When did you start your process or coming up with a weekly process if this were to happen? How much consideration did you give? How many changes did you make in it? Or did you come up with it was set in stone from Jump Street?
I've tweaked a little bit of stuff. I think when I was in a backup role, Monday, Tuesday was a little bit like conditioning almost, like let's stay in shape, and Sunday's not super eventful for me, and now that's probably switched a little bit more to recovery stuff and just trying to get my body right. And I've never really had like, okay, here's exactly what I do, and I'm just going to do it like this no matter what. There's always little tweaks you're going to make, and half of that in the early parts of my career to stay engaged. Like, okay, I'm going to try doing an extra lift or something just because you're not getting a ton of reps and you're not playing in the games, and so you got to do something to stay engaged.
Did you do your normal Tuesday thing where you meet with the DBs, or is that now that you're the stat, you don't do that?
I told them I probably will not be in the Tuesday meetings going forward. I think the idea of that when I was in a backup role was, hey, what's the best use of my time to try and help us win? And like I said, when I was in a backup role, I felt like going in there and helping them out was big, and now it's more so me watching the Steelers defense and meeting with Ted or getting a head start on the run game or whatever that is. So you're always trying to find the best use of your time, just like any other job. And so that's an example of one of the adjustments.
Jake, what was the first thing Joe told you when he found out that he was going to be out for the season? Can you tell us what his conversation with you was like?
Yeah, I'll keep some of that private, but it was just, I think he's never had anything but confidence in me from kind of the day I stepped in here and threw a little bit with them was, I think he called me Jakey Spin Rate, or I think him or Brandon Allen called me that. And so I was like, all right, like it always feels a little good. Like I just gotten cut from Minnesota, basically thought I was going to go become a coach and, stepped into the room. And I remember after the Minnesota game too, him saying like, hey, I really appreciate, what you're saying on the sideline. Like just keep talking to me. And so I was like, okay, I can do that. And just as my career has gone on here, just having a ton of confidence in my ability. And I've always had that too, but it's nice to get some validation there. And I think other than that, it's just been normal conversation, when are you getting surgery, stuff like that, and kind of normal human interaction.
Does the nickname Jakey Spin Rate live on today?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Not as much. So I think that was a Brandon Allen nickname, I think. So that kind of died when he left.
Have you allowed yourself to think about how big this could be for your career this stretch, or is it singular focused on the Steelers?
Yeah, I'm not oblivious. I'm not dumb. I know, I've seen this happen for other guys where, it goes well or it doesn't. And so, I think you can never just act like you're not that hasn't crossed your mind at least once. But I think as time goes on and you kind of get into the week, there's a lot of game planning that goes on throughout a week where you can't just constantly be in la-la land, like what if this goes well? At some point, you kind of got to narrow your focus to, all right, we're playing the Steelers. They're really good on defense, and let's go give them our best shot.
Noah, what it means for you, in your, like what he was talking about, is there a sense of also not putting too much pressure on yourself, making sure you're not too tight when you go out there in a moment like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we lost, but going into the Ravens game and just getting thrown out there on a short week I hadn't taken a rep in this offense in a while. And so, and then having the confidence of like, all right, I went in there, I felt like we could have played better, but it didn't go up in flames. And so just staying loose, like you said, is important. But I think for me, whenever I've played well in my career, it's just been a big focus on play to play, like just focus on operating well. And, I've always been naturally pretty accurate. So I think the less I think about all the different things that could happen, just go play and play fast.
Zach and Brian both talked about, like, you communicate to them, just call the plays, just run the offense. How big was it? Seemed you had everything at your disposal on Thursday, and how important can that be going forward?
Yeah, I think, there's different times where backups go in, and, I without knowing that everything that happens on other teams, you sometimes feel like the coach is calling plays to just protect the quarterback, keep them from losing the game, but then never really give them an opportunity to win it. And so my communication with them was basically like, hey, call whatever helps us beat the Ravens. And then I reiterated it again on Saturday, just with the text to pitch was just, hey, let's just call whatever helps us beat the Steelers and, give me that opportunity to go win or lose the game. And don't have the prevailing thought be after the game like, oh, okay, we called this because we wanted to protect Jake. Like that's playing to keep it close. Like we're playing to go win the game, so just call whatever is going to help us win.
How much of a boost of confidence, I have to imagine, is that for the team to have a quarterback coming in who's saying, I'm here to win. Don't dumb down the game plan. I'm here to help this team win.
Yeah, I think confidence of the locker room in me probably comes from my interactions with them. And there's been a lot of those. I mean, I've probably talked to more people in a backup role than I do in a starting role just because, I'm over there on scout team. You put on a lot of different hats. And so I think you kind of build up those relationships with guys in the locker room, guys like Mike Hill and Cheeto, DJ Reader, Trey Hendrickson, just by being around and being a normal person and a resource if they need it. I think how I've carried myself the last 2 years is kind of where the confidence from the team comes from, more so than, if I was coming out there and had no intention of winning the game, that's kind of pathetic.
Is there any advice that you lean on, Jake, or is there a quote or anything that you kind of pull from, latch onto in a big spot like this for you in your career?
No, not really. I think it would be an easier headline if I did. I've been asked that. I've been asked, do I have a message for Cincinnati? I went to a food drive and asked on my thoughts on the food drive, and I'm like, I don't really have any of those. I don't know. So, I think for me it's just play fast, play decisive, play accurate, and just keep it pushing.
How relevant, Jake, is your college career? You're 5 years removed from playing in very big games, very significant games, so you understand the big stage. How much can you draw upon that?
Well, I think my answer earlier on when I'm playing my best, I draw from that of just really being focused on the operation of things and playing fast and going through reads. I think that draws from 4 years of really having a battle in the Pac-12. And so, how much does that game experience as far as like the X's and O's relate to the NFL? Not a whole lot. But knowing like myself and how and drawing back on, okay, this was a big game I played well in, what were some of the things that I remember focusing on or different things that, helped create that outcome. And so I think the mentality part, it correlates. X's and O's, not so much. But, I think that anytime you can be the inexperienced guy, but with the asterisk of like I did play a lot in college, it's better than just not playing college or the NFL, and now here you go.
And playing in college on a big stage.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no bigger stage, obviously, than the NFL, but I would think that would help you.
Yeah. I feel like I've played well in big games before, and this is not something completely out of the ordinary for me.
We don't know your personality as well as we come to learn Joe's, and, everyone will talk about just like how Burrow kind of plays with, like all of the stuff that hasn't gone right in his career that got him to where he is. Like, he plays with that edge. Is there any part of you that is looking at this opportunity as almost even more exciting for you, that you can really have a chance to show people that might be down?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of my frustrations over the last 4 years is when you're buried on quarterback depth charts and you didn't come into the league as a high pick. Yeah, you're frustrated. You're watching guys make teams that you've objectively feel like you're better than, and you kind of just have to wait around until it's like, they didn't draft a guy here this offseason, and that really was the main reason I had an opportunity. And that's kind of been something that I've battled. So, yeah, I think I take a lot of pride in going through the last 4 years and keeping my head on straight. I've watched a lot of good quarterbacks go through those situations and either lose their confidence or just get frustrated or whatever it may be. It's not the most physically demanding thing being a third string quarterback, but it is mentally demanding where you're not getting a ton of reps. You're still getting graded probably harder than if I would have came into the league as like a third round pick or something. And so, yeah, I got that chip on my shoulder and a lot of confidence of I've had to earn everything. This has not been you're the guy and, here's the keys, or you're the backup and here's the keys. It's, a lot of meetings in off seasons like, hey, it's this guy's job to lose. And that's the most frustrating thing you can hear, because it doesn't matter how well you play, someone else has to lose it. And so you're kind of just hoping someone else sucks. And so now when you get into an off season, it's like, all right, like it's an open competition. I'm happy as hell. And I think for some guys, that would be something they feel like they're entitled to that backup spot. And so I've had to earn everything. I've had to battle, and here I am. So let's go.
There's people across the country asking the question, who is Jake Browning as a quarterback? But for a guy who's had so much success, like at the college level, how would you answer that question? Who is Jake Browning as a quarterback?
I would say at every level that I've played in, I've won. And so there's something to be said about that. There were years in college where that was throwing a bunch. There were years in college where that was, managing run checks when we became more of a running team. I've always been called sneaky athletic. So I'm not sure where the sneaky part's coming in, but I think that's always been my joke has always been under promise, over deliver on athleticism, and you always be sneaky athletic. But for me, it's play, always been accurate, never been afraid to air it out, and have always had a little bit to my game as far as scrambling.
1 week ago today, it was kind of business as usual for you. The next thing you know, Friday, everybody's huddled around the locker. Today, here you are at the podium. Is there any level of this that's kind of just come super quickly for you?
No.
Seem that way?
No. I mean, I'm not really thinking about a lot of that stuff. It's kind of a boring, sounds scripted answer, but pretty focused on just making sure I do my job right. We get in and out of the huddle fast. I go through my reads, get my checks right, and get to the next play and play well.
When you all have, been able to be successful offensively against Pittsburgh over the last couple of years, what do you think that's been a reason for that success?
Well, I think a lot of their stuff just starts with the front four. I mean, the two guys on the edge and the two interior guys. We know Larry, and everybody knows T.J. Watt and Highsmith, and Cam Hayward's been there for what feels like forever, and they've always played at a very high level. And I think they kind of set the tone really for the whole team, just creating so many negative plays, causing a lot of turnovers, rushing quarterbacks through their reads. And so I think that's really where it starts is not letting them completely take over the game. And, that's hard. They're really good players. And I think I said this a couple of days ago, but it feels like the Steelers have been good on defense for like 70 years. And it's just another really tough defense. But I think it really starts with their front four. They do a great job.
You've watched many an AFC North game. It just seems
The battles.
Yeah, I mean, they seem kind of different How do you view it? I mean, what do you have to do as a quarterback in those games that maybe you don't do in other games? I mean,
Yeah, I think a lot of those games, it's a lot of games are like this, but even more so with the AFC North. The turnover battle's huge, and whether it's the Ravens, the Steelers, Cleveland, they're going to limit your possessions, trying to run the ball, play really physical style of football, and so that's a big part is turnover margin.
Burrow's talked about like learning things from like matchups against star players like Watt over the years. It'll be your first matchup against Watt. How do you prepare for your first matchup against a unique player and maybe haven't faced a style like him before?
Yeah, I think that's a tough question for a quarterback and a D end. I mean, I think for me, just in general, having not played a ton in live regular season football, playing on time is very important. Don't sit back there and just pat the ball. And I think that comes into play even more so when you're playing against a good front four. I think part of what makes him so difficult is obviously he's very good, but when there's only one, it's much different than when there's four legit threats. And so you can't just help one side the whole time and leave the other guy on an island, because they do have four legit guys. And so I think for me it's just playing on time and not sitting with the ball back there. And then, a lot of that stuff gets figured out with scheme and stuff like that.
How much did the reps in preseason help that playing on time?
A ton. I think I've become a significantly better football player in the last 2 preseasons just because of that. In my rookie year, didn't play a ton in the preseason. Then we had a COVID year with no preseason. And so I think it was against the Cardinals, finally got to play a significant amount of football in 2022 preseason. It's like those are the first real amount of snaps I'd taken since the 2019 Rose Bowl. And so I think those were huge, and just being able to see yourself on film when it's live, it's so much different than, scout team. Scout team, it's not a live rush. It's just not the same. And so I think that was huge, but I think it really started with the 2022 preseason, then moving forward to the 2023.
How would you rate practice today, your first game?
Thought it went well. I mean, I think the practice part I'm pretty comfortable with. Had a lot of reps with them in August, and so it didn't feel wildly different.
Because of everything you've said, how long you fought for this, how hard, and I'm sure how much your head's swimming right now, do you think there'll be a point Sunday before the game where you'll stop and reflect? There'll be some kind of emotional reflection?
Yeah, I feel like when I'm very focused and when I play my best, I don't really have those moments until after the game. But yeah, hopefully go out there, beat the Steelers, and then have a cool moment in the locker room afterwards. It's like, all right, first start, got my first win, and now we're rolling. And so I think most of the reflection would come afterwards.
How many people do you have coming?
Only 5. I'm still far away. I'm from Sacramento, and I got an 11-year-old sister who's got a big basketball game this weekend.
Your teammates and coaches, it doesn't take long for them all to say the same thing. They talk about your competitiveness. Is that the trait that you think is going to carry the day for you?
Yeah, I think it's the trait that's gotten me here. That and having some, I think you got to be a little delusional and optimistic to, think rolling into my 4th year on P Squad and this is going to work out. And so I've kind of carried that and the competitiveness and the confidence in my own ability, as well as being around some good people. But, that's kind of what drags you through 4 years of, this sucks. And being competitive and not losing that edge of like, I know I'm good enough to play in this league at a high level.
Have any thoughts on Washington finally jumping FSU in the college football playoff rankings?
Finally. Yeah. I mean, I think we beat Oregon. What are they, like 5th? We should be number 1. And I think Michael Penix should win the Heisman.
There's a lot of quarterbacks from Washington who have played in the league. Anybody down through the years?
I mean, more so when I was back in Seattle, but Jake Locker would come down every now and then. And then Damon Heward was around a lot. Still keep in touch with him. And outside of that, just, different Pac-12 guys, but those are kind of the main 2.